Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my new video where I give my hot takes on upcoming tarot and oracle deck releases. Before I get into my hot takes, a couple of things. I want to define hot takes for you and also tell you where this idea came from. So there is a beautiful YouTuber in the makeup community that I genuinely enjoy watching, and her name is Hannah Louise Poston. And she does a video about upcoming makeup releases called Hot Takes on New Releases. One of the things I love about Hannah's channel, while it has nothing to do with tarot and oracle, but one of the things that I love about Hannah's channel is she walks this really incredible line between being mindful about what she consumes and purchases for herself, and also purchasing things that she knows she's going to love and use. And that's kind of the space I see myself in the tarot and oracle community. There's a lot of discussion that goes on that I think is really worthwhile around collecting versus purging versus, should you only have a couple of decks or a big collection? And there's a lot of discussion around this topic, and I feel really passionately about offering content on my channel that sort of is in that middle space of like, you can have things that you enjoy, but also there's value in being mindful and not necessarily feeling like you have to buy everything you see. And that's what I love about Hannah's channel on makeup, and it's what I want to do in this space, is really share with you the excitement and the fun of appreciating things without necessarily always feeling like you have to buy them. The point of this series is to just give some quick opinions on decks that are coming out. These are decks that are going to be in pre-order status in the mass market, in pre-order status in the independent market, or are currently crowdfunding on Kickstarter. Some Indiegogo decks may show up, although I'll probably focus mostly on Kickstarter depending on what you guys are interested in. And just share with you my hot take. So Hannah uses the definition, I can't remember where this comes from. It might be a Wikipedia or something. This definition is that in journalism, a hot take is a piece of deliberately provocative commentary that is based almost entirely on shallow moralizing. In other words, a hot take in this context is going to be me sharing with you my quick fire first impressions opinions based on very little facts or information, just what I can see on a purchase page or a pre-order page about a deck. So the point of this is that I want to be able to share with you these first impressions or these thoughts. As the first episode in this series, I was a little overwhelmed by the sheer volume, and I think it was actually also kind of eye-opening, the sheer volume of decks that are currently coming out or in pre-order status right now. So today's video I expect to be a little bit longer. Now how this works, I have my computer open in front of me and I'm going to literally look at these and just kind of share my initial thoughts. Again, my goal here is to show you that with all of this stuff we get a chance to see, we can appreciate it and have an opinion on it and be interested in it, and we can decide to buy it or not buy it, but it doesn't always have to be about the purchasing. Sometimes it can just be about the browsing. So here I am, a different outfit, definitely a different day. I had filmed the intro to this video and then I started having technical difficulties, so I tabled it and I'm back, thus the new outfit. Anyway, let's get on with it. So the Ferric Pinter Tarot is a mass market deck currently due for release August 8th, which is just a couple days from when you're watching this video. So there's not a lot of time left to really pre-order it, but I did want to speak to it because this was one of the ones that was mentioned by you guys when I asked which decks you were interested in hearing my hot takes on. Okay, initial hot take, I am not versed at all in fine art, not even a little tiny bit. So this means nothing to me as far as who this person is. Ferric Pinter is the artist, and Pietro Aligo and Charles Harrington are also listed as creators. Sometimes Amazon says who the artist is, and sometimes it just calls them all authors, so it's not always easy to tell. It does look pretty, but it looks surreal enough for me. Here in the, I don't know what card this is, the moon card, we have a naked butt and legs and then a veil over the moon. Cool, not for me. That's my hot take. Not really my style. Next we have the Tarot of Oppositions. Now this one does really intrigue me. I don't really know where I'm gonna land on this one, but the Tarot of Oppositions has this really cool, let me just pull up a bigger photo. So it has this really cool thing where you get sort of a darker looking image. To me, it looks darker and shadowier and kind of more haunting on the reverse side. Now, this isn't a new concept. Other decks have done this thing where you get a different image when you reverse the card. I'm forgetting the names of them off the top of my head. If you know, let us know down below. But I know one of them I think was maybe called something like Tarot Reflections or Tarot of Reflections, and it had this reverse mechanic. And there are others that have done that. At first glance, I think this is really cool as a way to work with reversals, but I will say what I'm not necessarily overly fond of is that the reverse is definitely depicted in like a darker, shadowier way, and that's not always how I read reversals. So I guess my hot take on this would be, I can't tell if this would be workable, and I feel like if you read reversals in a different way than what's depicted, it could be tricky. On the other hand, it is kind of cool if you like to shuffle reversals in to have like a different kind of image go up, as like come up for you, especially one that's more shadowy. This one also looks like a low scarabeo to me. Weird random hot take that has nothing to do with anything, but for some weird reason, and I haven't figured it out, when it comes to low scarabeo decks, for some reason, I almost never get on with them over the long term. And I don't know what that factor is that makes it so that I don't get along with them. I just know that I don't get along with them, and I don't know why. So hot take on Tarot of Oppositions is I don't know. I'm going to keep my eye on it, but I'm not sure. This one, by the way, is due to release August 8th also. Okay, we have to talk about the Labyrinth Tarot because I'm never going to hear the end of it from like half my friend group. Maybe my entire friend group. I'm just thinking. So I'm from the era that should have been really into the movie The Labyrinth, but I was never a David Bowie fan, nor was I feel like I encountered this movie as an adult. I don't feel like I saw it as a child. And when I encountered it as an adult, I remember just kind of thinking that it seemed weird. And I don't even remember if I watched the whole movie from start to finish. So my initial hot take for me personally is that because this is not my fandom, I'm probably not interested. It does release August 31st. I love this like Nomi Hierophant. I have no idea who he is. And I know any of you guys who are into the Labyrinth are like, what is your problem? Why don't you know? I feel like I'm such like a bad 80s child for not knowing. But love the art and love the style of the art, just not my deck. This deck, I literally got so excited. I think this is the one and only time I've commented on Rockpool's Instagram was when I saw the post about this deck coming up. Angels Among Us, a powerful way to connect to the divine. This is an oracle deck, and the creator of this deck is Victoria Maxwell, whose YouTube channel I'm completely spacing. I can't remember actually if Vic, I think Victoria goes by Vix. I can't remember if they have just a really popular Instagram account or like a YouTube and an Instagram, and I know who they are and I can like picture them in my mind when I think of their name, but I'm spacing on the channel or Instagram. So I will put that down below, but this is their creation with Rockpool, and the artist is Ellie Grant, and I'm really excited about this concept, particularly for both myself and anyone else who might be interested in exploring working with angelic energy, but wants to sort of do that in a more modern, relatable way, because that's definitely what this deck is in a nutshell. I mean, look at these characters. We have Mary, oh my gosh, we have Mary Magdalene, Melchizedek, I don't know who that is, Archangel Ariel, and Archangel Jeremiah. Jeremiah, I don't know if I'm saying that right. There's several things that really like get me excited about this deck. The colors are bright and vivid, always a win for me. The characters look relatable and diverse, also a win for me. And there are keywords like peppered across the cards in a really cool way. So it's kind of ticking all of my boxes for what I like out of Oracle decks. But this one I'm very excited about. I'm very excited about it. All right, let's talk about Tarot for Kids. Okay, here's my hot take on this deck. I cannot find any pictures of this deck anywhere other than this cover image, and it says it's releasing on September 7th, which at this point is about a month away. Why are there no images at this close to publication date? Either the publication, in my opinion, is going to be pushed back because the art's not done, or the art's done and it's just bad marketing, because I don't understand why we wouldn't have preview images. This is possibly going to be really cute. It looks from this one singular image like it might be diverse and playful and maybe a modern, but also like child friendly, which is, you know, often my aesthetic. So it looks maybe promising, but there's very little information. I mean, I will also say that the price is really affordable at current $13.99. This is on the US Amazon, but $13.99 US seems really cheap to me. So that also gives me pause, like why? Why is it so cheap? There's no photos. Is it going to be just pips? Is the production quality going to be bad? Like, I'm not saying it's bad that it's cheap, like it's great, but like also with nothing else to go on, I'm a little concerned at the same time. So I'm just going to wait on this one and see if we can find out more. We got to talk about the Cirque de Tarot coming out by Llewellyn Publishing. This is by Lisa Robertson, the deck creator, and the artist is Michael Joshua Tufts. This deck is due to be released, it looks like around September 8th. That's what it says at the top of the page here, so that's what I'm guessing is true. I am really intrigued by this deck. I haven't been really excited, like, you know where you get that feeling that you're like, ooh, I haven't felt that feeling about a Llewellyn deck, I feel like, in a long time. In fact, the last time I feel like I felt that way about a Llewellyn deck is when the Forest of Enchantment Tarot came out. That one gave me those really excited feelings, and that's what I'm feeling about this. And that's interesting to me, especially because I don't necessarily have a history of being particularly drawn to things with a circus theme at all. But there is something about the quality of this like really dreamy, sort of floaty, kind of soft around the edges art, and the color palette of this, like, it's got this like kind of jewel toned pinks and blues. There's something about that that is definitely drawing my eye. So the Tarot of Curious Creatures by Chris Ann Donnelly. This is exciting. Now, Chris Ann, if you don't know, is the creator of the Lightseers Tarot and the Muse Tarot, and this has a very Muse Tarot art style to me. And to be completely honest, I was never drawn to the Muse Tarot. It has this sort of like funky, collage-y kind of vibe. This one also has this really strange to me animal heads on people bodies situation happening that I don't particularly love. But I do think this has got a really fun, cute, kind of humorous vibe, and I definitely feel like if you like a deck that's going to like make you giggle a little or feel like a story, this one could be a really cool one to work with. Probably not for me though. The Wild Goddess Oracle deck. So this one is due to release September 14th. I don't think I said when the release date was of the other one. I'm sorry, but it was on the screen. So hopefully you saw it. Okay, so the Wild Goddess Oracle deck is due to release September 14th, 2021, and this one is being published by Fair Winds Press. Now, this one is created by Monty Farber and Amy Zerner, who have worked together on numerous other decks in the past, and Amy Zerner is also the artist behind the Enchanted Tarot, which her art style can be really, really cool. So let's take a closer look at some of the images and see what my hot take is. So, okay, so it's got that kind of collage-y, layered look. I do like that it appears that while it's called the Wild Goddess, right? While it's called the Wild Goddess Oracle, it feels like they do have this sort of multicultural kind of feel, I guess, to the approach of the figures included. And maybe it's not always like, here we have just the shaman, which I wouldn't normally associate with Wild Goddess. So I feel like they're calling it Wild Goddess, but then being very inclusive about the types of figures and archetypes represented, which is cool. The other thing I'm immediately noticing, we have some sample pages from the guidebook here. It really helps us see stuff. So this has, it looks like in the layout, a message and then a description of what's happening and like kind of what the artwork represents. And then there's an activity, it looks like. So here there's a root spell for grounding. And then let's click on another one here. So here we have, I think, the same kind of thing. Message, description, what the art represents, and then here there's a prayer for guidance. We have the dawn. So my hot take, I don't need this. The Sophia Marashinsky and Hirana Janto Goddess Oracle that I have and adore has a guidebook laid out in a similar way where you get like this like long feeling to me, sort of poem, which I like to use as like an invocation, and then there's a meaning and a message, and then there's an activity, usually some kind of ritual. So I want to see a little bit more before I decide for sure. Okay, Seasons of the Witch Yule Oracle. My hot take is that this is fabulous, and I can't wait for it. That's not really a hot take, I guess, is it? But that's kind of my initial feeling. This one is due to be released. It says on the top September 15th, but over on the side it says it will be released on September 1st. So one of those things is true. This is a rock pool deck, and it is part of a series, which I'm incredibly excited for. So I already have Seasons of the Witch, the Samhain Oracle, which you can kind of see down here in this little preview image. I have and love that deck. Working with it during the Samhain season is really a lot of fun for me. I am most certainly going to buy this. I just haven't hit the pre-order button because, again, I'm kind of slow to pre-order, particularly mass market decks, but I am very excited for this. It looks like it has the same layout and style as the as the Samhain one did, but with that Yule sort of vibe. I love the little poetic words on the bottoms of these cards. I think the chemistry between Juliet Diaz and Lorian Anderson is like beautiful, and I think whatever they're creating, they please do all of the Sabbats because that would be incredible, and I would love to have a set for all the Sabbats. I think that would be so fun. Do I need this? Absolutely not. Am I definitely going to get it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be buying this one. I just haven't hit the button yet. So next we have two decks, the Mystical Medleys deck and the Seed and Sickle Oracle, and my take on these is going to be well, let me talk about one at a time. These were requested a lot when I asked you guys what you wanted to hear my hot takes on, and Mystical Medleys and Seed and Sickle are both coming out in November by Liminal 11 Publishing. And full disclosure, I'm essentially on Liminal 11 PR list or whatever, because they tend to send me their new releases. However, I want to point out that these two decks specifically, I proactively reached out. Like usually DHL packages just show up, they just send it to me. But I proactively asked them if they would be sending these to me, because if not, I was probably going to buy them, because I'm very excited about both. And I'm also very excited to do full walkthroughs of both on my channel, because I think both are doing something really, really different and interesting. But let's talk about them again one at a time. So Mystical Medleys, and I won't be reviewing these, by the way, for a couple of months yet. I think I'll be getting my review copies sometime in October, a little closer to the release date. So watch for my videos then. But in the meantime, I'm so stoked. I've already like cheated. I normally do not watch walkthroughs of decks I know I'm going to review, because I don't want to like spoil my first impressions, but I was a little too excited. Also, Danny did walkthroughs and I pretty much watch all of Danny's videos, but I did try not to pay too close of attention so I can still have my own moment with them. Liminal 11 has been putting out what I feel are very high quality, indie quality decks for really affordable prices, and I feel like they're in this really cool in-between space. They don't feel like one of these publishers that's constantly pumping out decks all of the time. They are putting out decks regularly, but not at the speed some of these other publishers are. But also, I feel like they're being thoughtful and really creative about the kinds of things that they're publishing. There's this really cool variety. There's also variety in the cardstock specifically, so I don't remember which cardstock this one is, the Mystical Medleys. I think it's going to be like a matte cardstock, which is perfect. That's what I want. Their matte, thinner cardstock, like with the Luna Soul Tarot, is beautiful and buttery and lovely, and I really enjoy it. And I think, from what I could tell from Danny's video, this looks like that's the cardstock. But anyways, this is all production crap that most of you probably don't care about, and I'm sorry. Some of you might though. So for those of you that do, those are my like not so hot takes on all of those other factors. But what I can tell you is that this deck gives me so many, like, look at the vintagey, like, distressing they've done on the artwork here to make it literally look like it's kind of like dirty and worn. This deck looks like something I could have found in like my, like, not my specific grandparents' basement, but like somebody's grandparents' basement. Like, this deck is just kicking around. These are the kinds of cartoons I literally would watch at my grandmother's house. Like, they had this TV in this downstairs area. It was a big TV in like one of those big like holder things. I don't know if any of you guys will know what I'm talking about. I'll try to post a picture somewhere on the screen if I can find what I'm trying to say. With the really bubbly sort of front screen, and like you would turn it on at like 20 minutes before you wanted to watch it because it needed to warm up. This is the kind of cartoons I would watch on that TV, and it just gives me this like really cool nostalgic feel, and it feels like something I didn't know that I've wanted for a long time. And it's got whimsy, it's got humor, it literally, I feel like these pictures are moving, and I think that's because of what it makes me think of. So I'm really excited to get my hands on this. And the backings, I meant to talk about this. My hot take on the backs of these cards is that they literally look like fortune tellery meets conspiracy theory meets goofy cartoons in this really cool way, and I'm excited. So keep an eye out. I'm definitely getting this, and if for some reason I don't receive it for review, I'll buy it because I want it. Like, that's just, there's no question. So let's talk about the Seed and Sickle Oracle deck. This is the other one that is coming out by Liminal 11. This one is being created by Papez Inkwright, who also did 2 other botanical books, both of which look really interesting to me. And that tells me one thing that immediately catches my attention, which is that the creator of this deck, Papez Inkwright, obviously has a passion for plants and for working with plants. So creating a plant-based oracle feels like really natural and authentic to me, not like something that's just like being created because it's popular right now or something like that. So immediately that grabs my attention. I'll also say that there is a really cool thing, a mechanic, I guess, about working with this deck that I found out about that got me really excited. And that is that there is 2 little guidebooks that come with this deck. And they're the smaller hardback ones that come with Liminal 11 decks. But there's like a dawn guidebook and a dusk guidebook. I think that's what they were called. There's this mechanic designed where, depending on the type of reading you want to do, you would read from either guidebook, right? So that really excites and interests me because I don't think it's ever been done. I could be wrong. Maybe there's another deck out there that's had 2 different guidebooks based on what kind of messages you're looking for, but to my knowledge, that's not happened. So it's really exciting and different, and it immediately intrigues me. And if I haven't already mentioned it, I'll be reviewing this one and the other one closer to the release date, because I believe Liminal 11 will be sending both of these my way for review around October-ish, but I'm really excited about this one. And I know you guys are too, because there's been a lot of requests from people to hear my thoughts on this one. So really excited about it. And again, very different. I feel like everything that's been coming out from Liminal 11 has felt very unique. Okay, so let's talk about indie decks. Let's start off with the Augenblick Tarot and Oracle. Now these ones, I did get requested to talk about them. They are in pre-order status, and I believe those pre-orders are due to ship. It says August 1st, but they're still showing as pre-order. So I don't know if they're available now or if they're just on the cusp of being available. These are not brand new in the sense that this deck has the Tarot and the Oracle both have been out several times in the past. So this would be, I think, the third printing for both of them, maybe even fourth. So the thing about the Augenblick is that it seems to be based very much on, oh, look at that, that's a pretty box. Anyways, it seems to be based on architecture. There's a lot of man-made structures filling these decks, and I can totally see why that would be appealing to a lot of people. The tones and everything about it looks really great. The thing is, I am not drawn to architecture. Like, I can appreciate it when I see it, but it's not something that excites me or particularly interests me. In fact, when I go places, I want to view the outdoor spaces, not so much the indoor spaces. I can appreciate them when I see them, but they don't have the same impact on me. So I do have one other deck in my collection already that kind of has that indoor space vibe, and it's the Tildwick Tarot. And already that is one that I feel like I only feel the urge to reach for very occasionally. So this one would definitely not get any use for me personally, I don't think. I'll keep my eyes on it, but I have been tempted to maybe go for it in the past, but I do think that was more about hype for me and less about my personal interest in it. So I'm probably going to give both of these a pass, but they are interesting and worth looking at. There's something about how the images were curated, which I believe they were curated from, I want to say like a museum or like some kind of special place. I can't remember. This is about the creator. Okay, so, here we go. So the creator, Shannon Loftus, created this. She said she was looking for an image for a random project when a friend suggested I look at the Library of Congress's digitized files. When searching those, I stumbled across a collection of photolithographs taken between 1895 and 1905 from all over the world. My life would never be the same. I was so inspired by the stunning beauty of these images that within 6 weeks I had created the Augenblick Tarot and sent it off to a self-publishing printing company. Now came the hard part, figuring out how to read this deck I had made. That kind of immediately gives me some interesting feedback that first the deck was created and then it was figuring out how to read with it. And I feel like that, to me, sort of identifies the primary issue I think I have with curated decks. It might be perfectly aligned to the meaning of the tarot. But my experience with curated decks, and by that I mean decks where the artwork has been selected from a library of work from somewhere and then assigned to the tarot meanings, I've had a really difficult time with most curated decks because I feel like you need a particular, like the person that created that deck saw something that made them think of that card. But if I don't see the same thing, then I'm not going to have the same experience. And I think that's why curated decks often fall flat for me, because the way that I view that tarot card, maybe I'm not seeing in that photo or that piece of curated artwork what the creator was seeing in that piece of curated artwork or that photo. And so then it kind of puts me in this weird place where it's like, if I don't fully agree with the choices made, then I'm in trouble. There's a couple curated decks that I do really love. One of them is Danny Mystic's Mystic Masters Tarot. I think the reason that one works for me is because I saw the behind the scenes and I knew that what Danny was looking for in the artwork would be similar to what I was looking for in the artwork. And also she added elements to tie it to the tarot as well. Like she added color and paint and like this really cool intuitive process. And so there was more to it than just pulling from curated artwork, if that makes sense. I feel like there's another one that I have too that I also really enjoy. I enjoy the Unicorn Oracle, which is definitely curated artwork, and I love the Majestic Earth Tarot, which really is probably the most competing deck that I own to this because it's based on landscape art. And I feel like the creator of that deck, J.D. Hildegard Hinkle, if I remember correctly, I believe the creator of that deck did an amazing job finding landscape art that captured the energy of every single card in the tarot. And I think the same is true of the Tarot of Delphi by the same creator. So I'm a little partial maybe in their way of creating or curating decks. I feel like there's a lot of thought that goes into it. But I do think that this highlights some of the issues that I often have with curated decks, which is that these look like a good matchup, but then it's about, does it really work in real time? And I kind of, that's I guess my hot take on this in general, is that curated art decks and me tend to not get along. And because I feel like there's this very specific set of circumstances that has to fall into place to make it work for me personally. Let's talk now about the Penumbra, I don't know if I'm saying that right, tarot deck. This one is really interesting. So this is created by Eris Elizabeth, who has a YouTube channel that I will link below. And it looks like she created this deck in partnership with Ethany, who's taking care of the publication or publishing, I guess. Yeah, publication of the deck, and also helped her with the guidebook. So this one looks really, really beautiful, and it definitely gave me some little tingly feelings when I was looking at it until I got to the cup cards. So let me just show you what I mean. So the Major's artwork is breathtaking. Like I have no complaints at all. In fact, I really love this world card with this woman on the broomstick. And I hope this shows up in your guys' view. This Empress card, oh my gosh, this gave me such feelings, this visceral feeling of the Empress like pulling apart her body, and within she is the pomegranate. I just thought this was so incredible as a way to illustrate that card. I just thought it was spectacular. Most of the major arcana, I would say, I truly love. I really love this hanged one being on like, let me zoom in. This hanged one being on like dangling almost like from silks, like those silk dancers. But then again, I got to the cup suit and I was super disappointed. Like I love the pentacles, I love the swords, I love the wands. The cup suit is my most important suit because I'm such a water baby. It's like the suit that I really want to truly get along with. And I don't like it. I don't know what it is about the cup suit. It feels not as cohesive to me. There's something about it that just doesn't stick. And that, I think, may be the reason I don't get this deck. But I'm still keeping an eye on it because I'm not sure, and I want to see a little bit more come out about it. I know the guidebook will be well done because Ethany always does a really great job on the guidebooks. And I love that we get both Ethany's words, but also we get information from Eris, and that's where we see the Eris's notes here about the artwork and how it represents the Fool to Eris, which I think is really important. It's actually the one big critique I have of Liminal 11 guidebooks is we rarely, I don't think I've ever yet seen one come out where we get the artist's interpretation of the art in the guidebook. It would be great to see the artist's interpretation in their guidebooks. I think that is such an important piece because many of us buy these decks first for the artwork and secondly for the guidebook. Now that I've talked on and on about that, I'll keep you guys posted about this one, but I'm keeping my eyes on it. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so next we have, and this one is, there's a section of Indiegogo. So this is confusing because we're still in the indie section of this video. But there is a section called In Demand on Indiegogo. And this is where it's not a deck that is being funded for a period of time and then is going to go be created. The In Demand part of Indiegogo, which you can see where it says In Demand up here. Doop doop. Okay, this In Demand part of Indiegogo is like often where I see kind of Indiegogo hosted pre-orders. Let's talk about the New Choice Tarot de Marseille, the 2nd edition. So I never bought the 1st edition, and that is because, and this is definitely a hot take, so I'm just going to say it. This deck, I love the color palette. I love the look of the production quality. I've heard really positive things about the deck. I adore the colors in the pips, and I love the backs, and like, there's so much about this deck I absolutely love. But what I don't love, is that the characters in the deck, the courts and the major arcana, they literally look like superheroes. Like this Empress looks like Wonder Woman to me. And the Emperor looks like He-Man with very little clothing, or maybe Conan the Barbarian or something. It's like the scantily cladness of the characters, it doesn't offend me on any level. It's not like I'm looking at this going, I don't want to see this nudity. And I love that there's like this really queer friendly vibe to this deck. I love that too. What I don't love is feeling like all of these characters popped out of the last like episode of He-Man or She-Ra. And like, what is happening with that? I can't not see it. There's a really powerful look. I mean, the miners, though, are so incredible. And I'm glad that it exists in the world. It's just not one that I feel like I need to have. So, yeah, I can't see past the superhero-ness of the main characters. That's the point I'm trying to make here. All right, let's talk about the Outsider Tarot. So this, in so many ways, is not at all for me, but also a deck that I think is incredible and cool, and I feel like will make a lot of people feel really seen. It's incredibly clear to me that the point of this particular tarot deck is to represent the people that feel like they're on the outskirts, that feel like, and it literally says that, a tarot for outsiders, beautiful and perplexing creatures who live beyond the boundaries. So the characters in these cards are really out there in whatever way that they are out there. And I think that's really cool. I do not love the busyness of the backs of these cards. Like, it literally makes me almost a little dizzy to look at them. That's just a personal preference thing. And a lot of this deck feels like almost something that could be created while one is on mood-altering substances. Again, no judgment. It just feels like I look at this deck and I literally am reminded of going to like the laser light show about the Pink Floyd The Wall laser light show, and just like, I was just there to appreciate the light show, but 99% of the people in the room with me were super high, and I could tell that that was the appeal. And for me, I was like, wow, this is really weird. And that was the feeling I had, was, wow, this is really weird, because I wasn't seeing it through the lens other people around me were seeing it. And that's kind of what this deck makes me feel like mood altering substances aside, just the fact that it feels very like trippy and otherworldly in a way that I can't personally relate to. That's a lot of eyeballs. Oh, the suit is called Eyes. Okay, I forgot about this. So this is the other thing that made me go, no, I don't get this deck. And that is, the suits are bottles, roses, eyes, and lights, I think. Nope. That's my hot take. But it's cool. I'm glad it exists for the people that I think that are going to feel really good about it, but it's just not for me. Okay, we've got to talk about the Alleyman's Tarot. This was a Kickstarter. It's in the indie section because it's currently in pre-order status. It's already funded previously on Kickstarter. In fact, this campaign raised almost $2 million of an $85,000 goal, which was already a very lofty production goal, let's be honest. There are so many positive things I have to say about this campaign, but before I do, I just want to say this is a deck that I had a lot of hot takes about why I thought it was not ever going to be for me. And to some degree, I almost still do, and yet I backed it anyways on Kickstarter. Let me tell you what I mean. Here's the thing about the Alleyman's Tarot. If you haven't seen the campaign, it is literally a deck made up of individual cards that were either created for this deck or came from other decks. And therefore, the backing of every single card will look different, and the front of every single card will look different because it's coming from a different deck or was created to be a different piece of artwork for the deck. So it's literally, and also it doesn't follow the traditional structure. It's got the traditional structure and then a whole bunch of extra cards. It's a 137 card deck, and there are booster packs. It confused the crap out of me, and I kind of roasted it when I first heard about it. I was like, this doesn't even make sense. And it still doesn't. And yet I backed it anyways, and let me tell you why. Because for starters, I couldn't stop thinking about it. What I couldn't stop thinking about is the idea of having a deck of cards made up of all of these different pieces of artwork. I wasn't thinking about it as a deck that I would use. And this is probably one of the only decks I've ever intentionally purchased or backed, thinking in my head, I don't think I'll use this. But it was so intriguing to me and how different it was that I felt like I almost couldn't help myself. And I'd be curious to hear if anybody else was in a similar boat. Like, you know you won't use it, but you got it anyway because you have to know. Like, you have to have it in your hands and you have to know. And that was what originally got me to push the trigger, is I just thought it was really unique. But then once I pushed the trigger and I followed the campaign, I had so much respect for the creator of this deck because they built so many stretch goals into the campaign, and you can see it was very successful. But they built a lot of stretch goals into the campaign to make sure that every person who contributed artwork to this deck would be compensated, not only fairly initially for their one card contribution, but also had opportunities to basically make more money as the deck got further and further, like more and more funded. And I loved seeing that the stretch goal was like, oh, more money to the artists, more money to the artists. And I just thought that was really ethical, and it gave me a lot of respect for the way that the campaign was being handled and the way that the contributing artists were being treated. The fact that you were able to get updates with all the social media information, the deck that these contributing cards came from, every single artist that contributed to this deck was promoted through participating in this project, as well as paid. So they weren't, I felt like they weren't pulled into a project and then just like, oh, you'll just get lots of good marketing value, but I'm going to make all the money. It was more like, hey, let's do this thing together and I'm going to compensate you back and also make sure that you get well advertised in the process. And I just thought that was really well handled. And I've definitely seen situations like this come up, maybe not even in the deck world, where these collaborations aren't always well handled. And so that just made me feel really good about being a part of the project. And then on top of that, there's a whole Facebook group, which completely blew my mind. There are people in the Facebook group associated with the Alleyman's Tarot is a whole culture all its own. This deck created a whole culture. It created an entire culture of how people want to work with decks, and there are people Frankensteining decks in this group. They're taking a deck that maybe is already missing a card, and they're like, okay, I'm offering this deck up. Who wants, just let me know if you want certain cards. And they're sending them off to people, and they're trading this way. Or like maybe one person's making a deck, I'm making this up, but this is kind of the vibe. One person's making a deck maybe of all star cards, and somebody else might be making an entire deck of 9 of Cups, which now I totally want to do now that I've said that out loud. But like, and it's all made up of different cards, and like the possibilities have become endless, and it's become this really irreverent, messy subculture of tarot that all came about because of one person's idea to create this deck. And this deck now has its own lore, and people are, it's a movement now. And I think that's the coolest thing. And if nothing else, I just want to watch it happen and like play some small part in it. So yeah, this was, the pre-order is open now. The decks are due to ship, I believe. Does it say here? Does it tell you when they're supposed to ship? Estimated shipping is October of 2021. So you've got some time yet still to pre-order this. And this is being pre-ordered through BackerKit. So what happens is, I'll have the link down below to this page specifically so that you can pre-order it. But a lot of creators who fund on Kickstarter will then open up basically a period of time where you can kind of hop on the back end of that Kickstarter campaign and pre-order a deck for yourself once they know it's happening. And that's what's happening here. So anyway, that's a very long, that's not even a hot take. That's just my take on the Elements Tarot and my experience with it. And also me admitting that I totally backed this deck, even though I said I would never. Anyway, all right, let's move on. So I mentioned the Phantom deck earlier, and this is also being backed kind of post Kickstarter, or being in pre-order. It's in pre-order status post Kickstarter. And this one really grabbed me with the light. But this deck, there's so much light in the artwork. I don't know how else to explain what I see, but it's glow, it's light. And I know the cards themselves don't glow, but it's got this futuristic sci-fi, almost like, you know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of a futuristic Atlantis. That's what this makes me think of. Like if Atlantis was created in the future, this would be the deck of that futuristic Atlantis. That's what it makes me think of. And more than that, there was this cool added element of having an app to go along with the deck, and then being able to like, here's a picture that shows it. Be able to interact with the deck in a more three-dimensional kind of capacity through this art, and like explore the symbols in that card through this app. It just really stretching again the boundaries. And I will admit that I will always be tempted to back or support or purchase or pre-order a deck that is expanding the boundaries of how we look at tarot, because that excites me and that interests me as somebody who is constantly learning more from every new deck that I work with or encounter or walk through or whatever. And so this excites me for that reason. So I totally did back it. It is due for shipping in October as well. Okay, I have to at least do a quick chat about the Sacred Bee phenomena. Both the campaigns for the Sacred Bee, Wisdom of the Sacred Bee Tarot and the Wisdom of the Sacred Bee Oracle have been wildly successful, and I can see why, because these decks are stunning. But today I'm talking about the Wisdom of the Sacred Bee Oracle because that one is currently available to be pre-ordered, and this was the companion oracle to the original tarot deck. The artwork is absolutely stunning. I did initially anti-haul the tarot, and that reasoning still stands for me for the oracle, which is that I don't have any special relationship with the bee. The bee is a beautiful representation of the divine feminine, and there's a lot of power in the bee as a symbol and as an archetype. It's just not an archetype that I regularly work with, so there's nothing here for me. As much as I appreciate the artwork, this would be a dust collector in my collection. That being said, it is beautiful, and I love the color palette, and I love the style of artwork, and I see why there's so much passion about these projects. They're just not for me. The For Hoxa Tarot is being created by MJ Cullinane, who has also done previously the Wise Dog Tarot, which is a dog tarot deck, of course, the Grimalkin Tarot, which is a cat tarot, the Crow Tarot, and the Guardians of the Night Tarot. Here's my hot take. It's clear that the way that MJ Cullinane creates her decks is by doing a Kickstarter campaign, which this has already previously been Kickstartered. So the For Hoxa Tarot, it says down here, and then I'll give you more on my hot take. This is based on Journey Through the Magical Land of For Hoxa, which is I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, by the way. Swedish for to enchant, cast a spell, and bedevil. This artwork looks really gorgeous, and I would say probably my favorite so far of all of her decks. I love her approach to art. I love her art. I think it's stunning. But here's my hot take. The way that she seems to go about creating these decks, whenever she does a new deck, is she Kickstarters it first. And then, in this case, it's now open for pre-order. It's funded on Kickstarter. And then she runs it as an independent deck for a little while, not often even for very long, and then it seems to get scooped up for mass market by US games. So what seems to happen every time there's a campaign is that if you pay the indie price and you get the independent deck, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with the independent deck. They're lovely, and some people may even prefer them. But in my experience, the mass market version of the deck created by US Games, to me, often has a slightly better production quality, which of course makes sense because as a huge publisher, US Games has a lot more buying power to get better prices on higher end production. That makes sense. There's a logical reason. And also, I should point out, because this will definitely matter to some of you, when the deck is independent, the creator gets a lot more profit from their project than when it goes mass market, where they are down to just getting basically a commission, or what do you call it, a royalty. When you're just getting royalties on a published product, whether it's a book or a deck, it's really pennies on the dollar. And so the best way to support the creator is to buy it in this independent state. And so I actually think what she's doing is really smart, and I think it makes sense. And there's a lot of us who I think would prefer to support at that independent level. But at the end of the day, I am also a user and an enjoyer and a lover of tarot decks, and I like the US Games version better. And so it just doesn't make sense to me to buy a mass market. And I'm not even really sure if I would buy this deck, even once it's on mass market. And please remember, there are no guarantees. This is just what's happened in the past. So if this never comes out mass market, then I would have missed out potentially. But if it does come out mass market, I may take a closer look at it and see what I think at that point. But I don't think I want to buy it at this independent level. I just don't think that's where I'm at. But it is really, really beautiful. And I think it's worth a second look, because, oh my gosh, this Empress card and this Five of Water keeps drawing my eye over and over again as I'm looking at my computer. So it is giving me some feelings, and I'm going to keep an eye on it. I can't say yes yet, whether it's a yes or a no for sure. But I'm gonna wait and see. That's maybe the best answer to give. But my hot take about the production thing still stands, and I think it's still something worth knowing. If the production quality, if you like a certain type of cardstock, and by that I should say, some of you prefer thinner cardstock, and I believe her cardstock is good quality in her independent version and a little bit thinner than what you'll typically get from US Games. And so it may actually be better for you, if that is your preference, to go with the independent version rather than waiting for mass market, and it may be worth that extra cost. So, and I don't think she overcharges at the independent level. This is a $44 independent deck, which is, I think, a very fair price and much less than some independent creators charge. So I think it's fair pricing. I think that what she's doing makes perfect sense. It's just not aligned with what I'm looking for. Anyway, I'm going to stop babbling about that. Let's talk now about the Victorian Romantic Tarot, the 4th edition. Okay, so let me just cut to the chase here. I did not pre-order this for the 2nd edition, or is this the 3rd? Wait. This is the 4th. I thought so. Okay. I did not pre-order the 2nd or the 3rd. I thought that was correct when I said that the first time. And I'll be honest, I have a feeling, it's just a vibe. I have a feeling that this deck will not be reprinted again in the future. I don't know if they've said that in any of their write-ups. It's just a vibe, because I kind of feel like it looks to me like they're going all out in making this the best version they've ever done of this deck. And by they, I mean the team at Baba Studios, which is Karen Mahoney and Alex Ukalov. I may be getting Alex's last name right, or wrong, I mean. But anyways, they're offering a wooden box with the standard edition of this deck, which I think is really exciting, because I don't think they've ever done that before. It is something they typically only offer with their special editions, but their special edition decks tend to be much larger and, in my opinion, kind of unusable, more of a collector's item than something you would work with. And I work with all of my decks no matter how much I spent on them. Like, if I can't work with it, I don't want to keep it. So the big decks aren't appealing to me, but this small deck comes with a wooden box, which is appealing to me, even though I am somebody who hangs my decks on the wall in bags. I still occasionally like a pretty little tarot box. So I'm kind of excited about this. I did back it. Did I say that yet? I did back it. And I think I backed it because I'd said no previously. And I've often regretted that decision. And so I'm at the point now where I'm like, well, I'm just going to buy it, because I'm clearly still thinking about it. And it's still something that I kept looking for a deck that would be like this in feel, that I could use for romance readings that would have that really, again, romantic feel. And I've worked with other decks that have worked like that for a time and then fallen off for me, and I'm hoping this will be the one. I mean, it may not be. And chasing the one can be a whole slippery slope that you want to be really careful of, but I feel like in this case, this could be the one. And so I'm going to give it a chance. That's what I have to say about that. There are some planned changes to this deck, including improving the mix of racial diversity in the deck. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I'm excited that they're making that change. And they're going to make the cold stamping a little more blingy. I mean, that's not their exact words that they used, but that's the takeaway I had from it. That's my thoughts on the Victorian Romantic. Oh my goodness. Okay, now we have the Chromatic Fates Tarot. My gut feeling on this is like, why don't I have this already? I feel like it looks really, really vibrant and pretty. I'm going to just pull up this video, I think, and just see a little bit more. Yeah, see, I feel like this artwork is really, really beautiful. I don't know why I didn't back this when it was available to back. Look at this owl. I can't. It's so pretty. So I guess my gut feeling is that this looks really pretty. I love the backs too. This looks really pretty. I really want to keep my eyes on this. I don't remember what my reasoning was for not wanting it, and now looking at it, I kind of want it. So I'm going to wait and see, because there may have been a reason. Like maybe there was a deal breaker card or something, but this is now in pre-order through the same way that that other deck I was talking about is, where it says limited quantity pre-orders, which I think is important to point out. Sometimes when decks are backed on Kickstarter, what's often happening for the creator of that deck or the artist of that deck is they're trying to hit a certain purchase threshold. Maybe it's 500 decks or 1,000 decks, and usually much less than that isn't even possible. So whatever threshold they wanted to meet, they were able to meet, and usually that number, they put in some cushion to be able to sell additional decks when the Kickstarter is over or during the pre-order period. But it looks to me like perhaps there is not a whole lot left of that, because it does say limited quantity. And this is where something like FOMO can kick in for me, where I'm like, oh, they might not have very many and they may not reprint it, so maybe I should hurry. And then I remind myself that, like, if I don't end up getting this one, it's okay, because there's always going to be something else that I like just as much down the road. So I try really hard. I don't always succeed, but I try really hard not to give in to that fear of missing out or FOMO, because I think that's where I can end up making impulsive decisions I later regret. So I'm going to definitely still wait on this one and just take my chances. I feel like I want to see more cards, but I am going to take a second look at it soon and see maybe if I can figure out why it is that I didn't back it, or if I really do want it, or it's just the bright, vivid colors that are drawing me. But that's, I guess, my hot take on that one. And that brings us finally to decks that are currently funding on Kickstarter. Let's start off with the Radiant Crystal Cards Oracle deck. This is really pretty. So at the time I'm filming this, oh, actually, I don't think I can talk about this one because today is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, I'm going to talk about this one, but I'm filming this on Monday, and this video is planned to go up Thursday. And I'm not sure if that means that this deck will have already hit its deadline by then and you won't be able to back it, or if we'll still have that day, Thursday, that you could still back it. So if you happen to see this video when it first comes out, you might be able to. But if Thursday rolls around and it's already closed, I apologize in advance. But this is a really pretty deck, and there might be an option to pre-order it. You never know. This looks like, to me, a really lovely crystal deck with astrological associations, chakra associations, an affirmation, and like an energetic meaning or association. There's also some, it looks like, botanical and keywords happening also. So a really well done crystal oracle deck. At first glance, that's my hot take. But I also don't need it because I have a crystal deck that I love that has all the information I'm looking for in a crystal deck on it, and I still very rarely use it. And keeping that deck, I kind of keep that deck so that I don't buy decks like this that I know I also won't use. As pretty as it is, I just don't reach for those kinds of decks. So let's talk about the Crooked Cat Tarot. I mean, hot take, I'm not a cat person. This looks really cool, and if you are a cat person, probably worth looking at because I really like this art style. It does have this kind of gothic-y, kind of almost Halloween-y cat vibe to me. I don't know how else to describe that, but the color palette and such seems to be, oh, it's softer through the cups. That's kind of cool. And then a little more golden through the coins, which makes sense, and a little bit silvery through the swords. I do like that you'll be able to clearly see what suit you're looking at any given moment. This honestly looks like a pretty well done cat deck, but I don't need a cat deck. So this is an easy no for me. No problem. Sweet ass affirmations too. Okay, so here's my hot take. Holy cow, this deck is really, it's literally funding as I'm looking at it. It has a few days left to go to fund. It's going to happen. Now, here's my strategy. When I saw this deck, I was like, this is really fun. It's got a lot of like curse words in it, and it's like a great sassy, cheeky affirmation style deck. I have that in the Affirmators Oracle. You guys know I love those. But I really like the style of this one, and I really love the artwork in this one, and I love the humor in the campaign and just how well done this whole dang thing is. It's just really, it's really enticing me in general to want to buy it and want to back it. But I was like, wait a minute, it's the Sweet Ass Affirmations too. So what happened with number one? And I found it on Amazon for a really affordable price. So I realized what I would do instead, seeing that this is clearly going to happen at 153,000 Canadian funded, which is basically 123,000 US. It's so overfunded, there's no chance there's not going to be a bunch of these showing up on Amazon in the future, or at least on this publisher's website for me to buy later. But why not buy the affordable thing that I can have right now on Amazon, which I've done, and work with it and see if I enjoy it enough to also want to get the second one, maybe later when it's on Amazon for cheaper. Because I looked, and I feel like for me, in Canada, this was going to cost quite a bit. Let's see. For what it is, it was going to cost quite a bit. Let's see. So the solo pack would cost, which is the deck, a pin, and some graphics. Is there just a, no, that's the lowest tier that includes the deck. If I were to get that in Canada, it would actually cost me $12 shipping plus the cost of the deck, which equates to about $56 Canadian. But I was able to get the first one for like 25, I think, Canadian or so with free shipping. So like, that just made more sense to me. So that's what I did. That's my hot take. The Crimson Eye Tarot is too red for me. That's also, oh, I accidentally closed it. I guess the universe decided I was done talking about that one. Honestly though, it's monochromatic with lots of red, and I don't like the look of it. It doesn't draw me in at all. I don't really like monochromatic decks to begin with. There's a few exceptions, but that one was not worth making an exception to me. I have a major hot take about this deck. Now this is the postage tarot, postage stamp themed tarot cards, and I actually think that the artistic vision of this deck is really cool, but you know what is like a massive deal breaker for me? Even though it's so perfect for the theme, it's the edges of this deck, which are intentionally going to be die cut to look like the edges of postage stamps, which are perforated. And all my brain that actually uses tarot can think is like, all you're going to do is have so many places where you're going to get poked by your cards because the corners are sharp, and all of these little spots where the edges of the deck can crease, bend, and tear. And I don't care how sturdy your cardstock is, that is way too many loose edges. It's going to snag on the inside of bags. It's going to snag on my hands. It's going to be uncomfortable to shuffle. I can't even imagine trying to shuffle this deck. And that is my hot take, because this to me looks like something that is intended to be collected. And yet it looks like it has a really nice guidebook. So obviously the creator wants us to use these cards, but there's no way with those edges that I would ever be able to use these cards. I can't wait for this deck to come out, because I'm sure it will. It's beautiful. I can't wait for it to come out. Well, it's not quite at goal. See, I wonder if this is why. There's only 25 backers with 12 days to go, and the goal is really reasonable. It's only 5,000 US, which if anybody is into collecting tarot stamps and also into tarot, this is such a cool hybrid of those two hobbies that I could see it being really exciting. And I love the way the cards are laid out. I love that there's a botanical, and the name of the botanical is listed right on the card. I mean, it's cool. It's really well thought out. But I think a better choice on this deck would have actually been to make the art so that the border of the card looked like the border of a postage stamp and had a bit of a drop shadow behind it, but was actually on a straight-edged card with rounded corners. That's what I would think would make this usable. And I think that the really cool aesthetic decision to make it die cut like that on the edges is going to sacrifice for it's going to create a cost of usability, right? It's not going to be usable in the same way that it would be if it had a proper border. So that's kind of my thinking on that. That's my hot take. This Greater Secrets Tarot deck to me looks really, really, really cool. The colors are really, really grungy, and I'm excited about the theme of this. Like it definitely interested me, and I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to look closer. But then I looked closer. This one has a few days to go still as well. I went to look closer, and the first thing I noticed was that all the eyes of all the characters look sad. They all look sad, and not all of the tarot cards are sad cards, and that is such a deal breaker for me because it hit me in the feels in a way that I know would impact the way I would read the cards. I wouldn't even want to reach for it because it would feel sad to me, and that is just my take on the artwork. And I love the style of the artwork. I love the quality of the artwork. I love the way this looks like it's designed, and the cartoony kind of kitschy, different sort of feel immediately grabbed my attention until I saw those eyes, and then I knew I couldn't unsee it. The Lion's Gateway Tarot 3rd edition. I think I want this deck because Sarah at Sunset Bow Tarot likes this deck, but I think sometimes we're drawn to decks because somebody we respect or we like also likes that deck, and I think that can be definitely a slippery slope. I want to like this more than I do because Sarah likes it so much, and I really enjoy Sarah's take on tarot, but this is not for me. I can tell it's not for me as I get closer to the cards, but it is really exciting that it's being done again. It's met its goal. There's 14 days to go. And if you missed out on the 1st edition of this Lion's Gateway or the 2nd edition, definitely maybe consider this one if the art style is speaking to you. But I feel like it's one of those ones that I don't really want. I just kind of want. So I'm going to give it a pass. Aunt Lily's tarot deck is so cute. Essentially, this is somebody whose niece was interested in tarot and decided to make a deck for their niece, which I think is fantastic. I love the theme behind it. I think the artwork's really great. There's a quality to the artwork that I can't think of the right word for that isn't pulling me in, but the choices for the cards is pulling me in, if that makes any sense. Like I feel like the art isn't attractive to me the way that I want it to be, but the themes and the ideas represented in the cards really is. So I love this Fool card in the way that she's dancing at the edge of the cliff and the dog is like peacefully lying down, like, you do you, boo, I'm here, I'll keep an eye out, but I think, you know, you're okay. I love that the High Priestess is swinging from the moons. I think that's stunning. I love that the Magician is giving me all the Harry Potter vibes. And I especially love this Strength card, which depicts a child battling cancer. And this card specifically hit me. I'm going to take a second. This card hit me in the feels because we had actually a member in the Supportive Tarot Facebook group who shared a really personal story and the meaning for this card for that person. And for that reason alone, I want this deck to be wildly successful because what an incredible way to represent the Strength card. This deck needs to happen. I don't think it was one that it would be one that I would work with, but that definitely hit me right in the feels, and I would encourage you to take a look. There are some really great associations through this deck. In fact, let's see, is it already funded? No, it's about half funded right now with 72 backers. It's got a goal of 8,500 US, which is a really reasonable goal. It doesn't feel like too much of a stretch. What I think deserves a look is, again, the associations in the cards. There's clearly a lot of thought put into the way these characters are depicted. If you've been interested in decks like This Might Hurt Tarot, for example, but it felt too like kind of cartoony, this art style might speak more to you. This deck does sort of compete with that deck in my brain, which may be one of the reasons that I don't end up wanting to use this in my own collection. But I love how, again, relatable this feels. But I also don't want to have too many of those more modern, relatable decks. I like to have a mix of styles in my collection. I think that the artist and the creator have done a really excellent job with inclusion and diversity in this deck in a way that doesn't feel forced or tokeny. It feels very intentional and thoughtful, and it feels like it really does represent the world that we live in. So there's a lot I like about this deck. There's something about the art style that I'm not drawn to, and I'm trying to figure that out. But I think for now what I'll do is I'll hit this little remind me button. This might be one of those campaigns that what I really want to do is pledge without reward. And I haven't done this, and I think this is something we need to remember we can do when we believe in a project, but it's maybe not for us, is that we can always simply pledge because we believe the project should exist. And I think this might fall into that kind of category for me. And I think that's something I need to remember that I have as an option. It looks like there's different sizes of this deck. So there's a small and a standard size. So I wonder, just out of curiosity, it would only cost me 60 Canadian to back the small version of this deck. And maybe that's also a route I might take. So I'm going to think about this one. I've clicked that remind me button so that I don't forget and this doesn't fall completely under my radar. I do think it's important to me to support it, especially if it looks like it's not going to quite hit its goal. And I think this would be an incredible deck to do a walkthrough of. So I might literally enjoy just that process. And I know I've talked about that before, but to me, the walkthrough process is an enjoyable thing I like to do regardless. Like there's the process where I enjoy doing the walkthrough, and then there's the process of, do I like to work with the deck? And I may have mentioned this already in this video, but I've been recording for a long time and I can't remember. But even if those things are not, they don't have to both be true for me to have a good experience learning from a deck or benefiting from having held the deck in my hands, even if it doesn't end up staying in my collection. So anyways, all of that to say, I believe in this project and I would like to see it get off the ground. And I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to start crying again. And I don't know why, but this one really, really hit me in the feels. Okay. The 78 Tarot Animal Limited Edition Tarot deck. This is gorgeous. If this is your 78 Tarot deck, don't sleep on it. In my opinion, because I don't like collaboration decks usually. A collaboration deck, I have to kind of like 98% of the artwork for me to want to spring for a collaboration deck. Part of the appeal for this deck, or this 78 Tarot deck, regardless of the theme, all of their decks, part of the appeal to me is having 78 individual pieces of art and also seeing the artist's credit on every single card. So that's the theme behind these 78 tarot decks, is you have all of these different artists. Each artist only contributes one card. So you kind of get this like mini museum of artwork. So that can be cool if you're a collector. And the way I define collector in my head is if you like to have things because they're beautiful and you like to look at them, regardless of whether you're going to use them. But for me, because I like to use everything, I also want to look at the deck and want to shuffle it and lay cards on the table for a reading. And so far, the only 78 tarot that's been true of is the 78 Tarot Mythical. And I have tried and I have looked at over and over again the other ones. But so this one I'm not going to get because I already know I have a 78 tarot that I do like and enjoy, and it definitely needs no competition at this point. But I will say that Katie Welsh runs a killer Kickstarter campaign. There will be extra goodies. There will be great communication. There will be deadlines met. Katie is impeccable in the work that she does, and the team that she surrounds herself with all care about putting out a good quality product. So if you do back this and you do like the art and you are drawn to it, you will have, I'm quite sure, a very relaxing experience backing this deck. You may have a bit of a wait because such things are always the case with Kickstarters, but you will always know where the project stands, and you will get something that you'll be happy to own at the end. But all of that's to say, I'm not going to back this one because I already have a 7/8 tarot I like, and I don't need another one. This Southern Gothic Oracle, you can see I've clicked the Remind Me button on this one as well, is really cool. It's got this excellent sort of cartomantic feel that has me really excited. This also feels like it's right up Danny Mystic's Isle, and I need to remember Alley? It's in her wheelhouse, right? I feel like this deck also makes me think of Donna of Ozark Oracle, and there's something about this that just feels very different and exciting. And at first glance, I actually thought that this deck had pictures of these items and then just the name of the items, like conch shell, hurricane lamp, vanity set, blue moon, wild violet. But when I looked closer, I noticed that there was a couple of keywords underneath the titles, and that was the thing that tipped me over the edge to click Remind Me so that I can think about it a little bit more and discover or decide how tempted I really am, was seeing that, like, those extra keywords. I was like, oh, maybe I do really want this. I guess that's my hot take. The Divine Diversity 2 deck. So my understanding is that this is a new version of this deck that is smaller so that the cards are easier to handle. I guess this deck already existed, but was larger. I do really like the look of that Empress. Actually, I'm going to take that back. At a distance, I was like, oh, she looks like she's a little bit older, which I kind of liked in the Empress. But when I got a little closer, she has some facial characteristics that actually remind me of my biological mother, and that is not a good thing. So this one is not, nope. So the Tarot of, I'm literally just moving on. The Tarot of Asterisms. I think this is a deck based on the constellations. That's what it looks like to me. But what I really don't like is how dark it all is. When I see it laid out here in this image where you see cards 1 through 22, which is, of course, is the major arcana, it just looks so dark. I would never want to reach for this for that sole reason. This is an immediate visceral no for me, so I'm, yeah, not interested in that one. But it looks like it's probably very well done. Okay, I have something to say about the Full Metal Arcana. Have you guys seen this? This just launched. So the Full Metal Arcana is the Waite-Smith Tarot in bronze. And, okay, so my first thought is, have you ever seen bronze architecture? It turns green, right? It's bronze that does that. I'm pretty sure it's bronze that turns green. So there's that. That was my first thought, was, will it turn green? I don't know. I could be completely off my rocker. Maybe it won't turn green. Maybe it's got a special treatment on it. Maybe it says that in the campaign and I haven't read that far, but this is a hot take. Now, the other thing is that based on the funding level and also how much money you're willing to spend, you'll either get just like a single card or potentially the entire deck could be made in bronze. But the price is pretty, I mean, it makes sense. It's a bronze deck. If you want the entire 7/8 card tarot in bronze, it's going to cost you $5,500 US. And this would definitely be the kind of thing that falls into that category of like tarot collector, where you just like really cool tarot stuff, which is cool. And also, is it going to turn green? That's my hot take. The Dimlet Tarot by Nico. So here's the thing about the Dimlet Tarot. This one also just launched, and so it has 28 days to go. Even in the pictures, you can barely see it. And that is because the way that this deck is being created, or the vision that the creator has for this deck, is that there is no printing on the cards whatsoever. Instead, there is spot gloss, which is the shiny part of cards, right? Or if you get a box that has like shiny spots, that's spot gloss. So the actual design of the cards will be made up of spot gloss. So in certain lights, it will look just black. And then in certain lights, if it catches the light where the spot gloss is, you'll be able to see what's on it. But even then, when I zoom in really, really close, 12, which is Consideration, which is the Hanged Man card traditionally, right? So the renaming is fine. But in the Consideration card, it's just like a very simple sigil with the number 12 in the center of it. The Voice card, which is the equivalent of Judgment, is like an eye shape with 3 squares and like the symbol and like maybe kind of a rainbowish sort of line design. Very simple artwork, but scrolling through this, it literally looks like they're just black cards. Like to the point where when I first saw this, I was like, is this a scam? It's not. It's not. I want to be very clear. It's not. And as you zoom in, you can see what the designs are going to be. Like even here on the art poster, it says the Dimlet Tarot art poster. And then it says, I promise there are designs on here. They're just small and low contrast. Like if I can't see the cards before I back, Like, you can't even zoom in. Why is this image even in here? That's I guess my hot take. Why is this image even in here? Because even when I zoom in, I cannot see what the design is of all the cards. So this picture is absolutely useless as a potential backer. This makes no sense to me. There's also no video, so you're not getting samples. And this does make sense, because to get samples of this deck, with this spot gloss would probably be prohibitively expensive for the creator, so it makes sense that there's no sample. So that's my thought on the my kind of hot take on the Dimlit Tarot. Only a few more decks, and I promise, I'm pretty sure, I shouldn't promise, I'm pretty sure future episodes won't be this long because I won't have as many decks to talk about, but the Iris Tarot just launched, I believe, yesterday, and I was really excited because I was able to get it into this list. The Iris Tarot is being created by Rosa Cortez, who is Lunaria33 on YouTube, and I think maybe on Instagram, but I know that's the name on YouTube. The artwork in this deck is exquisite. It's made up of these like pencil line drawings with all this vivid color behind it. So while the pictures on the campaign page are typically fairly low resolution, and that is, by the way, so that people don't pirate this person's artwork and then create a pirated copy of the deck. So low resolution images is normal for campaigns, which is true of the Dimlit Tarot as well. It's just that was so unusable, it wasn't helpful. Here we do get a feeling of the artwork, and I love all of the vivid color behind everything. There's also 2 bonus cards that may come out those are stretch goals. So it depends on how well how well the deck is funded. That will be what will determine whether we get the bonus cards or not. I say we, but I am not backing this deck, and I don't think I will, because I don't, this art style, this high contrast, bright color, and these detailed, beautifully done pencil drawings or charcoal drawings or whatever the medium was, these black and white illustrations on bright color backings. It's just not speaking to me. It's not my style, but it's incredibly cool, and the art is incredibly well done. It's cool. It's edgy, and it's cool, and it's bright, and I like it. I like looking at it. I just don't think I would use it. So I'm probably not going to back it, but there's lots of time still to do that. The gold is really reasonable at $9,600 US. Again, it's just, I love the color. It's just not something I think I'll use, but I'm rooting for Rosa all the way. Okay, the Adventure Cat is cool. It is almost fully funded with 49 days to, it literally just funded in front of me. Did you see that? It literally just surpassed its goal while I was watching. So congratulations to the Adventure Cat Tarot. This is really bright and rainbowy. Again, this was a suggestion from you guys that I talk about this one. I love the theme of it. I love that it's transparent, so you can layer your cards on top of each other and get nuanced readings. There are a couple of other transparent decks on the market. Peggy has one of them that was put out, I think, by US Games, and there's another like fancier one put out by Schiffer Red Feather, I believe, that has a really cool layered effect that you can do. It's neat. It's neat to play with this mechanic, and if you've never seen a transparent deck or you're really like attracted to this concept, this might be the one for you, particularly if you are a cat person. I found that they're a little tricky to work with, and that the clear plastic part does get scuffed and scratched over time. It's not a big deal. It's still very usable, and you can still see what's behind it and that sort of thing. But I know I won't stack my cards for a reading like that or do that layered thing. It's just not something I see myself ever using, but it is cool to see up close and in person. So it might be worth taking a peek, but it's just not something I see myself really being all that interested in doing, like in looking at myself. But it does look pretty cool. And lastly, let's talk about the Maven Tarot. Now this is my hot take on this campaign, which somehow has already met its goal, which is actually shocking to me. But this to me is everything a bad campaign is. There's so little information on this that I can't imagine feeling confident you would even get a deck at the end of it. And let me show you what I mean. There's a video that's 30 seconds long, and it's all about, this deck is supposed to be all about office culture. But all we get in the video is music and these words that show up. We seem to have a disconnect. It's talking about office culture. See, here we get actually kind of one other image. But mostly we just get this. We get this dude on the couch, and that is the image we get. So what that tells me is that there's no art done for this deck. Maybe up to 6 cards have been completed. Maybe, and that's me being optimistic. Because the only image anywhere on the campaign page as a still photograph is this 4 of Cups image of this skeleton sleeping on the couch having some kind of nap, and like the time falling off the clock. And so I'm like, okay, well maybe they explain it, right? Maybe they explain where they're at with how much art's completed, or like what their accountability is, because there's an accountability section on Kickstarter where you can say like, here's the risks involved with backing this campaign. There's no accountability section. There's nothing. All it says, and I will read it to you word for word, Maven Tarot is more than a tarot card deck. It is a send up to office culture. The collaborative effort of college dorm mates who looked at life and their place in the workforce and said, nah, We didn't want a seat at the table. We wanted the table. So we decided to set out and make our own company. I mean, props to you for sure. But then we get the card image, and then it says, we are unbothered and unbossed. We are Maven Tarot. What am I backing? Am I backing this company you're trying to start? Am I getting a deck? It doesn't even say in the description what it is that they are promoting, what it is that they're creating. Like, it's implied that it's a tarot deck, but it doesn't even say that anywhere on this campaign page. It doesn't say how many cards, how much of the art is completed, when they expect it to be finished, what the shipping, like, there's no information. And so when I look at the backer rewards, you can pledge $10 for a sticker pack or pledge $40 for the deck. And all it says about the deck is the Maven Tarot deck, including the booklet to decipher card meanings. It doesn't even confirm that there's going to be 78 cards. And the reason this is important is because there have been many a deck have come out that calls itself a tarot, but is not a tarot. It's not based on the tarot structure. It doesn't have 78 cards. It doesn't have majors and 4 suits. So for all I know, this is one of those. I have nothing that confirms what it is that I'm getting. And yet it says the estimated delivery is in a month, in September 2021. None of this smells so fishy to me that I'm concerned for the people that have backed this. And again, I'm not saying that to be crappy. I'm saying it because there's just no information and I don't understand. So just say questions about this project, check out this FAQ. So let's click the FAQ. Maybe there aren't any FAQs. There's also no updates or comments. And this has 34 days to go and has 51 backers. And I'm confused. I'm like honestly, legitimately confused, and also honestly and legitimately concerned. There doesn't seem to be any links to any social media. The creator of this campaign is listed as just Maven Tarot, which is the business name. It is their first deck created. They haven't connected any social media, and they've never backed a deck under this account. There is a website, so maybe I'll be proven wrong. Let's just take a quick look. Maven Tarot is a celestial tribute to corporate culture and coworker chaos. So we do get another card here. This just says, as per my last email, which is great. It's a startup venture that is backed by crowdfunding. The more funds we raise, the more cards we create. That's concerning. Does that mean that if they only make so much money, they're only going to create 10 cards, 12 cards? Is it going to even be a complete deck? It literally is concerning me on many levels. Can everybody mute? Happy Friday, just circling back. I mean, these sound like themes. This does not sound like it's going to be a tarot deck. I'll tell you right now, these card titles are not even associated with any kind of suit. This sounds like it's going to be a deck of cards that may or may not be usable, that may or may not have only 6 cards or 50 cards. We have no idea. There's literally nothing here. Your options on the website are about, and that's literally all that exists on the about page, and a link to fund the project. And a link to their shop, which theoretically should be empty, but actually has merch. This actually is really concerning to me. Like, am I being a conspiracy theorist? This says pay me, which, great. Okay. There's merch, but there's no deck. What is happening? So I'm concerned. That's what I'll say about that. I'm incredibly concerned. I feel like for me, this would always be a hard no. There's not enough information. This seems incredibly sketch to me, and it may be completely above board, in which case there's, I think, no excuse for such little information on a campaign where you're asking people to spend their hard-earned money. I think this needs to have more info. So not to end this on a sour note, but I had some feels when I saw this because I don't understand. And if this funds, which oh no, it's already funded. It's already funded because the thing on Kickstarter, if the funding goal isn't met, nobody spends any money because you're not charged until the end of the campaign. If the goal isn't met, nobody's money gets taken, right? But if the goal is met, then on the day the campaign ends, your credit card is charged and you're now at risk. There's no guarantee from Kickstarter that what you are promised you will get. In other words, what you're saying when you back a deck on Kickstarter is, I believe and trust this project, and it's worth it to me to support the project even if I get nothing back. Now, that's what the terms of service of Kickstarter essentially say. Kickstarter isn't going to care because they don't. That's not what you're doing here. They don't care if you get a product. You're not shopping on Kickstarter. You're supporting a project. Now, the perk for supporting a project is that most ethical creators will make sure you get the thing that you're supporting. That's what the tier and reward levels are all about. Any above board person should make sure you get the thing you're supposed to get when you back. but there's also no guarantees. That's why there's a section on Kickstarter campaigns at the bottom that usually says accountability. And it tells you about, well, this is our first project, or maybe this is our third project, and here's why we're reassuring you that we're a worthwhile risk. That's why that section is there, which is completely missing from this campaign, I will point out for the second time. So this to me feels like a money grab in the worst possible way. That's what it feels like. And again, I'm concerned for the people that have backed this, that they may not get anything for their money, particularly since it looks like one of the tiers is a $100 US tier, where not only will you receive a limited edition holographic gilded deck, but there's no deck yet. There's no art anyways, and booklet, but you will also have the unique opportunity to work with the creators to design a card that will be featured in the deck. And there were 10 backers that spent $100 each for that. This just looks really scary to me. So I'm gonna leave that there. That's my hot take. It's a lot of words, but that's my hot take. Thank you so much for watching this with me. This has been a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to making one of these videos, hopefully every month, sharing with you the decks that are coming out and my hot takes or opinions on them, where I'm kind of standing. And as always, you know that you can always tune into my anti-hauls to find out about the stuff I definitely talked myself out of. And you can tune into my Say Yes to the Deck series when you want to see me working through the process of deciding what I do for sure want to buy. But in between those two videos, there's always this whole process of like the things that I kind of just have a different process around, or like this where I'm browsing and I decide to purchase something. So I hope this gives you a peek into that other part of the process where I'm just kind of checking things out and feeling them out and seeing what I think. And I hope that this also exposed you to some new stuff that's out there so that you can decide for yourself if it's something you really, really need or want, or whether it's something you can just enjoy the look of and appreciate from a distance, but not have to like acquire and own and hold. And wherever you are on that process, whether you are like, gimme, 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 or like, I'm just trying to cool it right now, wherever you are in that process, I hope this video offered some value to you. So thank you so much for hanging out. As always, please do remember to click the like button if you enjoyed the video or you found value in it. Subscribe if you're new here, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you're notified of my future videos and live streams. And as always, thank you to the Unicorn fam for your support of this channel. It means so, so much to me. And if you want to learn more about channel membership and want to become a part of the Unicorn fam, check out the join link in the description box down below, or the little join button next to the subscribe button on my channel. Thank you all so, so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.